AB 3027 addresses an issue that is not well known and unfortunately not well understood by most: transnational repression. Neither state nor federal law defines transnational repression, yet it is a tactic that has grown increasingly common given the rise of social media as a tool of harassment and intimidation. Transnational repression is employed by foreign governments to prevent the exercise of human rights by a diaspora and exile communities living abroad. It can take many forms, but in all cases, it is designed to intimidate, silence, coerce, harass, or harm. By definition, employing transnational repression against a person residing in the United States is a violation of our nation's sovereignty. State actors like China, Russia, and India do not care about our constitutional freedoms. They seek to silence dissidents, erase criticism, and even murder their critics. We have seen numerous recent examples of foreign governments committing acts of transnational repression against people living in California and elsewhere in the United States. In my own Sikh faith, an outspoken community leader was shot dead in Canada, and the Canadian Prime Minister has stated that there is credible evidence that the Indian government is responsible for the killing. India has denied the accusation while also refusing to support the investigation to identify those responsible for the assassination. Federal law enforcement foiled two similar assassination plots targeting Sikh leaders in New York and California that were also linked to India. These crimes occurred just last year, and the same year the Indian Prime Minister was honored with a state dinner at the White House. AB 3027 represents a historic first step toward California recognizing the dangers of transnational repression while providing law enforcement with the training they need to protect the freedoms of all Californians. This bill does three important things to shape California's response. Number one, it defines transnational repression in law, creating a foundation for an organized response. It requires the Office of Emergency Services to work with the Commission of Peace Officer Standards and Training to help our local law enforcement recognize and use best practices to respond to transnational repression. Number three, it sets state policy to protect Californians from transnational repression and hold foreign governments accountable for committing those acts. The United States, and especially California, should be a haven to anyone who has fled persecution in search of a safer home. The refugee, exile, and diaspora communities we have welcomed in our state deserve to know that we will support them and protect them as they exercise their rights as Californians. AB 3027 sends a very clear message that when you are here in California, we've got your back. AB 3027 is supported by the California State Sheriff's Association as well as the Sikh American Legal Defense and Education Fund. On behalf of SALDEF, I am honored to be joined today by Chairman Kavneet Singh.
Okay, so when you're ready, you may proceed.
Sure. Is that all right? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Assemblymember Bains, Chair Rodriguez, other esteemed members of the committee. Thank you for your time. On behalf of the Sikh American community, both here in California and nationally, SALDEF thanks you for this opportunity to talk about AB 3027. I'm currently serving as the acting executive director of the nation's oldest Sikh American civil rights and advocacy organization, and I hope today my testimony and written remarks, which were submitted to the committee in advance, will shed some light on the Sikh American experience with transnational repression and the deadly and damaging consequences, really the silencing of Sikh activism and community intimidation that we see across communities that are affected by this. This bill addresses an important gap in the current approach to addressing TNR, or transnational repression: the need for a robust and coordinated federal-state cooperation effort. By placing the responsibility of addressing TNR within the Office of Emergency Services, or OES, you ensure that incidents in education are addressed in a consistent and a coordinated fashion across the state, I think that's something we've seen in a parallel in hate crimes, that without this coordinated and really connected response and partnership, that these things get lost in the shuffle. TNR takes many forms today. In some cases, as Assemblymember Bains said, it's an immediate threat in a person's life, such as the murder of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who it is alleged now by the Canadian government was targeted in an assassination attempt by the Indian state. Excuse me. Additionally, there's an attempted murder of Gurpatwant Singh Banu, an American resident in New York, that the United States Department of Justice has now brought a case against an Indian national for having organized and tried to fund his alleged assassination. In others, as demonstrated by our report, Virtually Vulnerable, where social media and online expression is targeted by these foreign actors, and a number of companies headquartered here in California are coerced into stifling the voices of other Americans. A significant note, both the state Senate and the Assembly acknowledged in a unanimous vote last year that these events are among the many examples targeting the Sikh community and occurring in a historic context of a 1984 genocide in a unanimous vote in 2023. Disturbingly, individuals warned by the FBI about these incidents, as Assemblymember Bains said again, at least we know of 6, and probably there are more, but the FBI has rightfully kept this under wraps unless those folks have come forward. So these folks who have been warned about the threats to their safety posed by the Indian state live across the state of California and across the country in central, northern, and southern California, for the folks that we know again. And as detailed in our written remarks that I submitted, these folks really received limited support from law enforcement and security agencies for their further safety. I spoke with the ASAC of the FBI in San Francisco last week. And while sympathetic to the cause, ultimately resources are a really limited issue, or a really significant concern here of telling someone, hey, you're being targeted by a foreign actor. Here are things that you can do, but regrettably, because of resources, we can't provide you any more support. Excuse me. AB 3027 offers a strong roadmap for a state-level response to transnational repression that does not interfere with federal authority and enhances community safety and security. As demonstrated by the preceding scenarios, coordination and education are 2 particularly important components of any response to incidents TNR. By centralizing responsibility to address TNR within Cal OES, AB 3027 ensures that will be consistent coordination between federal, state, and local agencies. As TNR involves a significant federal response and related incidents occur around the state, as evidenced by the Sikh American experience, having a statewide agency leading the effort is the most appropriate way to ensure a consistent response and marshal the appropriate resources necessary for victims, communities, and organizations. Creating educational resources in coordination with POST is an appropriate way also to ensure that impacted agencies receive the understanding of TNR that they need to be correct advocates and protectors of peace. As Saldif's experience and research indicates, there's a significant gap in the ability of law enforcement to identify, prevent, document, and appropriately respond to incidences of TNR, and POST has a track record of collaboration with the Sikh American community, one of the better ones we've seen across the country. In conclusion, TNR is a grave threat to our democracy and puts our basic constitutional rights at risk. AB 3027 is a step in the right direction to help Americans of all backgrounds and diaspora groups live in the state freely. Thank you again for your time and consideration.